Good morning. Guess most of you know I'm not Duke. Thank you, Duke, for asking me to speak.
I'd like to introduce you to Reverend Donna Johnson. She just moved here from Fairfax, Virginia, to take the position as the CEO and president of Unity Worldwide Ministries. She is the gal that's at the top, and we welcome her wholeheartedly, and we look forward to your talk.
Thank you. Thank you. And I was going to say all that for myself, but thank you. I am truly delighted to be here. I've just been taking in this moment, this beautiful room. The presence in here is so special. Special because of this community and what it is, but also because of the history of this place. Dear to my heart, as you can imagine. I love my new job. I love being able to meet people and to speak on behalf of Unity Worldwide Ministries. I travel quite a bit on the weekends, and I speak at various churches. And I want to share with you where I was last Sunday. Last Sunday, I was asked to participate in a panel of interfaith leaders from around the world at a global peace convention that was held in Atlanta. This was a big deal. There were over 40 countries represented at this global peace convention. There were 12 former Latin American presidents who were there. There were people from all walks of life. And we all came together to discuss whether or not we could have peace on earth. The discussion didn't really hinge around peace itself as much as it did around the issues that we are facing as a world. So there were prongs coming from the center of this convention. There was a whole contingency around human trafficking, sustainable living, the interfaith initiatives that are happening, which is what I participated in, and numerous other areas of interest to people. When I participated on this panel, what I came to see is that there is a place for unity at the global table. Because most people, with their very best intentions, are looking into the world and sizing up what the issues are externally and trying to come up with solutions that will get us a little further down the line. But I, being a Unity student for so many years, have learned that the external is only a reflection of what is held in consciousness, the internal experience. And until we understand how it is we are creating the reality that we are experiencing, peace on earth will be just out of reach. We must find peace within ourselves. And that begins with knowing that we are 100% responsible for how we are experiencing life. God gave each one of us a mind and a heart, and it is through this mind and heart that we are creating. And until we begin to see how we can consciously focus our minds and our hearts with clear intention, we're going to be creating willy-nilly. We're going to be having a hit or miss experience of our world. The woman who was up here speaking earlier about 2012 and the Mayan calendar and this world as we know it that's coming to an end on December 21st is really referring to, in my opinion, a shift in consciousness which is taking place that has been foretold for centuries. This shift in consciousness into a new age is called the Golden Age. We're entering into the Golden Age. What does this really mean? Well, we all know how fast the world is changing and how chaotic it can feel at times because there's just so much happening so quickly, it's hard to get a handle on it. I know in the world of my parents, we could look down the road and foresee what was coming and predict and attempt to control it. We could plan and channel everything into a desired outcome. But today, change is happening so rapidly that we can no longer do this effectively. There is so much happening. It's been said that technology and information doubles every 18 months. So whatever we know today or we think we know today, 18 months from now, there'll be twice as much information. A lot of this information and technology has unintended consequences. So things are really in a heightened state of chaos. How are we going to navigate a world like this, let alone have peace on earth? You know, there's some 7 billion people here now. When I was born, it was 2.5 billion. That's quite a shift in and of itself. So it gives us opportunity to step into the realization of our authority and power to create heaven here on earth. How do we do that? Well, we're not going to be able to do it with just our minds, because our minds cannot sift and sort the information. There is another intelligence that I would like to talk about with you this morning, and that's the intelligence of the heart. I will share this information with you in the context of my personal story, because you don't know who I am, and up until about 10 years ago, I don't think I knew it either. But I've experienced some things that I'm sharing with people in our unity movement. And I think it all began when I entered ministerial school. That was in 1994. And I went with the intention to discover my heart. Now, I had a very good mind. I understood metaphysics. I was a metaphysical wizard. I loved to talk about the unseen principles that yielded our manifested reality. But when people went into the domain of the heart, I was lost. I could understand it intellectually, but I could not relate to it experientially. So I set my personal intention that once I left school, aside from being licensed and ordained and having a job, that I would have an awareness about my heart. I began working at Silent Unity, and I worked there about 6 months when I had a very unusual experience. Now I want to just stop and say this experience is my experience. Many people have different experiences, but this is what happened to me. I was driving to a classmate's house one afternoon prior to going to work that evening when the bottoms of my feet began to itch. I hate it when that happens because I'm very ticklish and there's just no relief. So my feet began to itch, and then I began to have a tightness in my chest. And I thought, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack and the circulation has been cut off to my feet. You know, when we don't know the answer to a question, we will fill in the blank. We will just pluck stuff from air and just stick it in there and call it the truth. Well, I pulled over and those symptoms went away. So I drove on over to my classmate's house, knocked on her door, and said, "You won't believe what just happened to me." And the minute I said that, this energy engulfed me. And I said, "I've got to sit down." I was literally in what we call back in Tennessee, where I'm from, a swoon. I was literally in a swoon. So I sat down in the chair, and the chair wasn't good enough. I had to lay flat on the floor. And I had on a pair of jeans and a leather belt with a big brass buckle. And I ripped that buckle off the belt, just ripping that to give my body some space and some freedom. There was such a heat coming off of my body as I was lying there that my classmate went and got cold cloths and put them underneath my neck. In the meantime, what I began to feel from my chest was currents of energy coming down and out the palms of my hands. So I'm thinking, wow, isn't this interesting? Wow, this is really cool. So I'm telling my classmate about it. But there's a very practical side to me. And at one point I decided, well, this has been very interesting. Enough of this. Time for me to get up and go to work. So I sat up and I felt this energy, this invisible hand just throw me back down, thunk, flat on the floor. And I thought, okay, I guess this is a time to surrender. So I laid there, and that went on for about a half an hour. After that experience, I sought to know more about what that meant and what I was going through. So I went to see an instructor that I respected a great deal. And she said to me, it sounds as though your heart chakra has opened. I went, really? Well, I didn't know really what the chakra energies were about. I thought, isn't that a Hindu thing? So I began to read and study about these energy centers. So I want to tell you just a little bit about it. I know many of you are very well familiar with this. But we are energy. This is my personal belief. Everything here is energy. It is the living presence of God, a unified field of intelligent living energy, and its vibration is that of love. We have an energy system that our body coalesces around. This energy system is the chakra system. We have lower chakras and we have upper chakras, and then we have our crown chakra. The lower chakras, the first, second, and third, have to do with materiality, survival, creativity, procreation, all of the things that we deal with as a human being here on earth. We filter our experience of life through our chakra energies. And most of the world, by far, is filtering this life through the lower chakras, which means their experience is all about materialism, survival, duality. Right here in the third chakra is the place of duality. It's the place of willpower. Me, not me. I survive over you when push comes to shove. It's all of this control issues. But when we break up into the heart energy, and the heart energy begins to awaken, there's a huge paradigm shift that occurs. And we begin to frame our experiences in a different way. This is the power of love. The power of love. But it's more than just a feeling. It is an intelligence. Not long ago, I was watching a video on healing. And in this video, there was someone talking about a study that was done. I believe this was from the HeartMath Institute, but I haven't researched it to be sure. But it's certainly HeartMath stuff. There was a study that was done where they took individuals and they connected them to electrodes, their brains and their hearts, because they wanted to research the magnetic field. They wanted to see the coherence of the energy waves when something pleasant was experienced by the individual. So let's say a baby is smiling at us, and we like that, we feel good. But when something else happens that's startling, that's painful, that makes us sad or angry, then there's a different quality of wave that comes. So what they did is they hooked up all of these people, and then they had a randomly generated set of images that were coming at the people so that they could measure the coherence of the heart waves. What they discovered inadvertently is something that I think is just magnificent. What they discovered is that a millisecond before the random image displayed on the screen, the heart had already responded appropriately. I've been talking a lot. I want that to sink in. A millisecond before the manifestation, the heart had already responded. They said it is the heart that informs the brain, that informs the body. So we have many centers of intelligences. What is so startling about this to me is I began to connect the dots in ways that have shifted my life and ways that have explained a lot about my personal experience. And this is how I put it together. My view of God is that of a unified field of intelligence whose vibration is love. It says in the Bible, in the scriptures, God is love. If God is love, then the power of the heart, which is 5,000 times more powerful than that of the brain waves, the power of the heart connects with the intelligence of this field through the vibration of love. So I began to see that we activate the intelligence of the heart, which is prescient. It already knows. Before we ask, it is answered. It's already there. But only if our heart is awakened, if it is open. Do you know when we're living in the lower chakras, we meet someone and we fall in love and we just think they're the grandest thing. And then eventually something happens and there's a disappointment. So for a while our heart is open and then it snaps closed. And then we get happy again because something goes our way and then our heart chakra closes again. We are really living in duality, but having tiny little episodes of what it feels like to have an open heart. When we begin to abide in this place of love with a sustained open heart, we begin to realize that the love we see and feel is really the love in us. And there's no separation. There's only one love, and that is the divine love. And yes, there are places and people that help us to connect with that profoundly, more so than others. But it is our willingness to be connected ourselves personally to it that opens the way. So, when we ask, how are we going to navigate this changing world? How are we going to be leaders? How are we going to take our place at the table and co-create a world that works for all? How are we going to do it? Well, our best thinking isn't good enough unless it is informed by the intelligence of the heart. I believe that as we face the changes that are before us, it's an exciting time to create with intentionality. It is an exciting time to come together and to know our power as spiritual beings having a human experience. In this panel, there was a rabbi from Israel who sat next to me, and he says, "Is it possible to have peace on earth?" And when it was my turn to speak, I said, absolutely it is possible, because if we create war, we can create its opposite. Its opposite is really our natural state. It is only through our ignorance of our connection to the divine that we, through error, create things we don't want. And it's okay. There's no shame or blame. It's just learning, waking up, seeing what we created, going back to the drawing board, starting over, and evolving. We have a way of experiencing spirituality that is not unique to the world, but in some ways it is. And if we practice what it is that we know is the truth, if we keep at it, the heart will open. I'm glad today is joy, because I have been through a joy awakening, and that's how I know my heart is awakened. There was a time in my life when I realized I didn't know what joy was. I didn't feel anything. I had accomplished a lot. I was proud of myself. Didn't want for anything except for joy. And I began to ask that question, why don't I feel any joy? And then shortly thereafter, I began waking up in the middle of the night grieving. How's that for joy? Waking up with this deep, painful grief, as if my heart were being ripped from my soul. And after this went on for a period of almost a year, as it was occurring, because by the time I woke completely up, I couldn't feel it anymore. It would subside. In that in-between state, as I was feeling this, I said, "What? What is it?" And this little voice said to me, "I feel so unloved," which totally shocked me. I was in ministry already. I didn't know what that meant. My congregation loved me. I was married. My husband loved me. My mama loved me. My cats loved me. I was loved, you know? I didn't know what that meant. But I took it to prayer and meditation, and I contemplated, and I read, and I sought help. And I began to see that that was the voice of my divine child. You know, a little child will lead them. A little child will lead us. It was the voice of my authentic self, my Christ self, whatever you want to call it. And it was a shock to me because I thought I'd given my life to this. But I realized that I had cut myself off from it in order to minister and be what other people needed me to be for them. I'm not that way anymore. My life changed dramatically as a result of that. So here I stand some 16 years after setting the intention to discover my heart. And now I have joy, joy, joy. And I know what love is. And yes, I have my human experience, but you know what? If it's funky, I don't stay there very long. I can come back because I now know the truth that makes us free. When we ask, how are we going to navigate this world? How are we going to bring peace on earth? I've got the answer. I know. It is through the intelligence of the awakened heart. So I just want to close today with this because a couple of Christmases ago in my own church, we were singing "It Came Upon the Midnight Clear." And suddenly, as I was singing the last verse, I had an epiphany that this is what Samuel Sears spoke about when he wrote that. He was a Unitarian minister, by the way. That hymn was written in 1849. And I'll see if I can remember the last verse. "For lo, the days are hastening on, by prophets, bards foretold, when with the ever-circling years comes round the age of gold. When peace shall o'er all the earth its radiant splendors fling, and the whole world will give back the song which now the angels sing." It's time to sing, people. God bless. And it's also time to meditate. Let us just breathe in this moment. And to feel the energy in this room and know that we feel it because it is from within us, flowing through us. There is a world that needs our love, that needs our clarity, our strength, our hope, and our joy. When we claim these things for ourselves, we claim them for every person on the planet, no exceptions. So this morning, as we just abide in this beautiful space, we know that everything we need is provided. Everything we seek is right here and now. What is there left but gratitude and joy? The realization that everything comes to bless us, no matter how challenging, no matter how painful. It is simply the breaking away of the shell of our understanding so that the greater realization of who we are and why we are here is revealed to us. So again, breathe and allow the Spirit to have its way with you so that you may know that you are the light of the world. Let us rest now, just breathing in the silence. Sweet, sweet Spirit, thank you for your grace poured upon us today. We go forth filled with joy and strength, and we are eager to be what you have called us to be, which is no less than the light of the world. We are in coherence with your presence. This is our prayer and our decree. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
God is love, and we who abide in love abide in God, and God in us. God is love. God